What I'm going to show you today is just sort of like we call it the harbor tour, sort of just kind of give you the lay of the land of how the platform works, high level demo, where you can find some resources, how to give us feedback as you get to start working with the platform. And I would say, just on the point of feedback, um, our team is super responsive to feedback. So there's an example of something that just happened like a week ago where somebody said, "Oh, it'd be really cool if we had this little thing to add, add a note here and do this thing." And in 3 days, we had that in production. Like that's how serious we are with this. That's the level of attention that this is getting within Edelweiss. And we're not a giant company, but we are generally speaking, all people who have like worked in bookstores and like myself own bookstores and uh are so in tune with, I hope, the industry itself, like with that we understand how important little things can be and like small quality of life improvements and what that can a difference it can make in the day of a bookseller or a buyer or anybody who's working in the store. So you I guess probably most people know who Edelweiss is and that you've worked with the platform for a long time. From a tech perspective, it was written a long time ago. So, Omnibus is a way for us to kind of bring the technology into uh, the current century, as it were. And what it does, what's very exciting for us is it allows us to sort of we use the raise the ceiling because it's really changing what we can do. There's a lot of requests that we get in the old system from folks about making improvements, and we just can't. I mean, just literally the technology can't handle it, and some of the things that we'd love to do with analytics, um, you can't because the database just can't support it. It would bring everything down if we tried to, do things certain ways. So more modern technology, we have a better stack of technology to work with, and it's much more flexible. Um, it has a much more modern look and feel to it. It's more like what you use pretty much everywhere else in your life, right? You're not stuck with using really old technology everywhere else. It's just within the book industry. So it's frustrating for me as a person who like owns a store, but also is a technologist, and I've been in the software industry for a really long time, and I've been working with really good technology. That's why I chose Square to run my store on when I opened 11 years ago. And I wanted that Square-like experience for everything that we do in the store, and it's just easy to use. It works really well. It functions in the exact places where I want it to function. We use Square pretty broadly, actually, in my store. We use it for payroll and some other things, loyalty program and all those things. If you're not using it for payroll and other things, definitely consider it. I would say the whole payroll and bringing people on, new hires and things like that, that whole process is very, very good. And really, it's been a great experience for us and very, very affordable, which is also critical. Um, so you're going to see in Omnibus, though, the sort of a similar kind of functionality, right? Where things work the way that you hopefully expect them to work. Um, Searching is more like it is in other places where you can have things not exactly quite right and still get results, right? Whereas in today, if you're searching a native device and you don't have the exact name of the book, you get zero results. Now you can kind of have something that's close to it, um, and still get an answer and hopefully, make you more effective in finding things. And like I said, we've built the platform in such a way that we can evolve it very quickly. So when we discover that something's not working exactly correct, or we get an awesome suggestion from one of our users, we're able to react to that very quickly and get that in production. Like I was saying, the example with, just having a couple of days to get something in and we did it. The way to think about this just in general is that, Square is the register part of the equation. So that is where you're doing the transaction, you're scanning the book, you're collecting the cash, you're tapping the card. Everything else is in Omnibus. So all the logic as far as managing the inventory and reordering and all of those pieces are in Omnibus. Um, it's an important distinction because you get used to, if you've been using Square for some time, and I think most of the stores here, you have been using Square already for a period of time. You manage your categories and all of those things there and your items, and you have to build items manually and all that good stuff. You do all of that work in Omnibus and it pushes into Square. You do the receiving and ordering and all the things, the quantities update in Square and real-time connection back to Omnibus when you sell something. So that inventory updating is happening like real time. The second you sell it, it's showing up in Omnibus that you sold it. So all your reporting and all that stuff, you can pretty much get everything you need out of Omnibus. Um, there's one report that I don't think we really tried, like we haven't built out a whole reporting suite, but one thing that I would point out is that like when you're working with like your sales tax payments for the prior month and you've got to pull that report I still pulled out in Square because it's just easy. It's like one, it's a specific report under accounting and then taxes and boom, I have it. So those kinds of things I don't, there's not really a pressing need to build that in Omnibus yet, so we haven't done it yet. But and I think that is about it for the slides, which is great. Let me just get right into the actual platform. So this is the dashboard where you kind of land when you open the system up. And these little widgets showed different things across the environment. And you're seeing like, okay, here are how many customer orders we have floating in the system right now. Here's how much our inventory is valued at. And this is just a kind of a test store, test data. A couple of other things I'd point out here is that all of these the widgets and whatnot that are here are all configurable as far as where they sit on the page. If there are things that you want to see, your upcoming events, you want to push that to the top, and your sales overview, you want to push that to the top, and you're worried about returns, so you're doing that. You want to move those up. You can adjust where all of these things sit. So very easy to maneuver them around. You also have the capability of creating different roles. So in many smaller stores, and mine was this way for a number of years, where it was basically a couple of people, so everybody did everything. So there was really nothing that anybody, you know, you didn't want it. Not that you don't want them to see it, but it's just like, why do you want to, clutter up somebody's view of what they need to see? Um, so as it sits right now, if you have an account in Edelweiss and you're connected to your store, they will have access to Omnibus and they will be able to see all of these things that are here. You can create roles though that have whatever level of access that you want to be able to grant them. And so, for example, you could say we have a generic front register login in my store. It's just a computer that sits behind the counter that everybody uses to like look up books, create customer orders, look up our calendar, whatever they might need the internet for. And in that one, I don't want them to be able to, I want them to be able to maybe see orders and things like that and see the inventory and see catalogs, but I want them to be able to manipulate any of that data. I want them to just be able to see it. So we've turned off access for that particular login. You can kind of create these as you need them for whatever role you feel like is appropriate for the person that you're working with. So if your buyer doesn't, maybe your buyer needs everything, but they don't really need to see, reporting or be able to touch your settings, you can adjust that. So it's really simple to kind of build these and get them to the level that you want them. I'm just going to pop back up to the dashboard. Really quickly wanted to just show this little snapshot thing that's kind of neat, kind of to see some sales data, inventory data, some customer data, that kind of thing. While I'm here on the homepage, there's a couple of items that are on every screen that you're here, and you can always slide these out of the way by doing this, like just hit this little arrow in the bottom right, you'll see. But this is the feedback mechanism, and you can submit any general feedback, have a bug report, you have an idea, pop it right in here, give us just a brief couple of lines about what it is you're trying to do. If recording a video is helpful to show like, here's what I'm running into and it's not doing what I think it should do, you click the video. You can make it private too if you don't want anybody else to see. It would just be anybody who works at Edelweiss and you that can see it. So if you're ever talking about, I don't know, maybe you were going to show a screen that had some sensitive data on it that you didn't really care for everybody else to see, you could mark it as private and nobody else will be able to see it. And then you submit the feedback and then you're notified when we make updates to it and communicate back and forth with you. You'll be able to see that in the feedbacks. And on the bottom left over here, there are a couple of guides. One is this tour guide, which is kind of what we're going through today, kind of. But and then there's some first steps and frequently asked questions like that we recommend people take a look at first. And then this little blue book is the tutorial library. So this has different recordings of various, and I have all the archived ones here because I'm an admin, but the published ones, they're all different, quick videos about different actions that you can take and in the platform to do different things, what, building an item or creating a customer order, submitting an order, things like that. But I want to show you a couple of things really quickly that I think are pretty impactful from the day-to-day perspective, and that is one is creating an item and searching for an item. So I mentioned like the fuzzy spelling or this ability to spell things that are do things wrong and still get results. So Remarkably Bright Creatures is obviously the book I'm looking for, but the customer came in and asked for Very Bright Creatures. So not knowing, I just typed it in and but I got the right item. So that's exciting. What this does when you're searching as well is you're searching not only what's in your catalog, so this is showing you what's in your Square system today, but also what's in Edelweiss. So you get additional books that match your search in whatever way, and you can then action on those as well. Like say, oh, you know what? I really wanted to get this Very Hungry Caterpillars book, but I want to add it to my catalog. So this is how easy it is to create an item, and I think probably everybody here that's worked with Square has created an item in Square, and it's not always the most fun thing. So all you're going to do here is pick what category you want this to go into. So I'm just going to grab a, doesn't matter, and then hit Add Product. And this is connecting to Square, creating the item, and now it's in my library so that I could then now order it. I could ring somebody up for it right now in 2 seconds, which is kind of nice because if you were doing like a pre-order or an order for somebody that you didn't, for an item that you didn't have in your system, and you were taking prepayment for it, you can ring up the actual item very quickly as opposed to waiting, doing a custom amount in Square and then trying to remember that the person paid for it, that kind of thing. So you can, from here, add items right to a customer order if you wanted to. And this is a pretty simple, straightforward process. It brings the item over, and then you can pick a person. I'll just pick myself. And as you go through the ordering process, it asks you a few questions about like, you know, um, you know, you can update the expected arrival date. You can make any notes about it, like, oh, they prepaid for this. You can add it to your to be ordered list. You could add it to an existing order if you wanted to, if you already had one going, and then you can create the customer reservation. And once a reservation is sitting in the system, as your buying process happens and as the order moves through the system and gets received, it kind of all ties together and it'll flow back in and you'll be able to notify the customer like this. So like on this particular book, this order came in. I want to send the email notification to the customer to let them know that it's ready to pick up. They only had one book on there, so I don't need to have a waiting items list because there's only the one item on it. Telling them what's ready. Here's the pickup information. We'll have it ready for you. If I wanted to add a little custom message, I could do that here. I could just, leave it with the standard response, that kind of thing, and just hit send customer notification, and it'll send that email out to the customer. And it marked, this person doesn't have an email in the system, so I can just say, oh, we called her, so I'm gonna, or we phoned marked. So now you're creating records that everything has been, these people have been reached out to and they've been contacted to let them know that their order is in. My the process we follow in my store on kind of a daily basis is this replenishment workflow. And I think this is probably the most useful kind of place to start in the system, if you will, is to start working your replenishment process through Omnibus. And because we're getting the real-time data back from Square, you can kind of do this anytime if you wanted to. You don't need to have anything, you don't need to wait until tomorrow if you didn't want to. If you wanted to say, how are things going today at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and you wanted to just grab today's sales, you could do that. and then build orders based on that. And what we're doing here is from the replenishment report, we're trying to give you the information that you need in order to determine whether you should reorder it or not. So you can see how many of the item that you've sold, and you can see, so you've got, this is giving you the breakdown of 1 day, 7 days, 30 days, 90 days, and lifetime, how many you've sold. So I can see that I sold three yesterday and three lifetimes. So I've only sold three of these. So maybe I don't really want to restock this one. I just sold three of them yesterday. Maybe it was a special order or something like that. Um, but this one, looks great and I want to have it on my shelf. So I'm going to reorder that one. So you just tick off the ones that you want to get more of and just click on them. And now we're going to hit process, and that will add them to our to be ordered list. If you were working straight with an order, you could also change this to say, I want to add, when I do this, I'm going to add it to an order, and you can pick the actual order. And these are all just test orders that are sitting in the system, but you could sit here and just add items directly to an order if that's how you want to do it. It kind of depends on your workflow. It's pretty flexible with how you want to go. The benefit of using the to be ordered list is that the sources for the to be ordered list are multiple things. The replenishment report that we were just on, things called scratch pads, which are kind of just like notepads that people can put books on. And I'll show you some examples of that kind of thing. Special orders from customers, they also funnel into the to be ordered list. If you received a product and it was damaged, the damaged product will get added back to your to be ordered list, making the assumption that you want to replace it, because you got one in damage and you had ordered it before. So you have these sources of all other, books coming into your buying process, right? That you need to evaluate and see where do I want to get these from. So now, normally, what you're doing is you're grabbing book by book, or you're going into Edelweiss and you have them all in there, and you're sorting them to different publisher orders, or you're ordering them all from Ingram, whatever you're doing. Um, our goal is to make it so that you can use this however your process is, but also kind of inform your process and let you know that as we bring on vendors to do electronic ordering is it's life-changing in my opinion. I mean, this has been we have Bookazine is one vendor we have stood up already, and my store has been using them for a little bit. We just put through our first Penguin production order today. And if that all goes well, we'll be rolling it out to stores, EDI ordering through Penguin very, very soon. And Penguin is someone that as a store, like we order from, multiple times a week. It's like, just a significant number of books come from Penguin. So if you're using Penguin and you can add EDI ordering to your workflow, it's going to save you a significant amount of time from going back and forth for either the biz site or, mailing them to reps and waiting to hear back. It's a fantastic process, and I'll kind of show you a little bit of what that looks like. But the so right now though, we've got this list of items that I want to get, and I could add them all manually and look them all up manually, but we also have this program in the system where it'll evaluate each one and figure out where to buy them from. And it's basing this on a couple of different things, like number one, who the publisher is, right? So if it's a Penguin book, it's going to put it on a Penguin order. But we have a couple of wholesalers in the system, Ingram and Bookazine. And what it's doing there is it's evaluating whether the item came from a customer order or from a replenishment order or replenishment report. So the source of the item being on the to be ordered list is very important. You can set this, but generally speaking, the kind of out of the box process is that the customer orders time is more important, how quickly you're going to get it, than discount. That's not always the case. So you absolutely have the flexibility to adjust that as you see fit for your business. But the way that it's configured sort of out of the box again is that if it's a special order for a customer, it's going to lean towards putting it on a wholesaler's order if that wholesaler is going to get it to you more quickly than say Penguin would. Penguin, sometimes, depending upon where your store is, you could be very close to a warehouse and actually get Penguin orders faster than Ingram. But Hachette, you can almost guarantee it's never gonna get to you before an Ingram order would. So it's taking that all into consideration and putting them on these basically notional orders at this point. They're not, it hasn't created anything. You still have to sort of check the box to create the order, but it's sorting all those items based on what's in the to be ordered list and where we'd want to buy it from. It also has an evaluator for, if you could, you're going to hit your minimum order requirements. Like Harper has, like $150 retail minimum order, whereas Hachette has, a quantity of 15 or something like that, or it might be vice versa. I can't remember which, but everybody's got their own. You configure that, each publisher is configured independently so that it's evaluating real minimum requirements for every order that you're building. And then if you want to place it, it's just as simple as checking the box and hitting create order. And it will take those items off of the to be ordered list, add them to this order, which then you can now place with the publisher. And so, like, for example, here's a Penguin order with a couple of items on it. I could EDI order it by clicking send order. If the vendor was not an EDI vendor, you can export the file to a CSV file. So like for right now for Ingram, until they come on board, you can download that file and upload the spreadsheet into your cart in iPage, and it will populate all the items and the quantities, and you can submit the order that way. It's very, very quick. Couple of things that I would point out here. We have this ability to add notes to an item. Some of them are automatically added, like where they came from, but you could also, if you wanted to say like, you didn't really care about that, but you wanted to say that put this on the display. And save it. And that way, when it goes through the process, instead of like in my store today, this is very much a post-it note, or somebody has to remember to tell somebody that, don't forget when that comes in, put it on the display. When my receiver gets this book and gets to actually process this shipment, they'll see this note. So imagine we had placed this order and I'm going to move it into a submitted status. I'm going to send it to receiving. And this is when you EDI order, those steps are all automatic. It automatically goes to submitted. It automatically creates a shipment when the books ship. So now you can see imagine I'm the receiver now, and this box came in and I'm going to receive it. And I can now see this note that says, put it on the display. So I can pull this item and know like it doesn't go on the shelf like everything else does. If something's on a customer order, it's similar where there's a line, and let me just find one. So many different test orders in here, sorry. Nope. There's a customer reservation. So you can see what it looks like when it's a book that's on a customer order. It's very clear to the receiver that there's a book on a customer order here. And when they receive it, they're prompted to like allocate the copy to the customer order so that from an inventory perspective, you're not showing that one is available when one isn't available. It's actually sitting on a customer order on the shelf, on the special order shelf, that kind of thing. You can also print a bookmark for it. And basically the bookmark is basically just that slip of paper that says the person's name and the order number and the details of the order that you put with the book to put on the special order shelf. So that's sort of that order workflow. Let me just go back here really quickly and show you an example of so like when we submit an order via EDI to the vendor, this is the sort of automatic things that happen. It changes to submitted. It's got a record of the order of what exactly was sent, the file that was sent to the publisher. And then this acknowledgement that comes back, this is really, really a cool thing. If something is on back order, or maybe it wasn't their book and you accidentally put it on this order, you'll see those items here. They will show as back ordered or rejected. And therefore, exactly what you're going to get. Like within minutes of placing the order, this acknowledgement typically comes back. Penguin processes really, really fast. And the other publishers will be similar. But typically those acknowledgements happen within a day or so of you ordering. You'll have a acknowledgement from pretty much every publisher. Um, and then when a shipment is created, actually, you'll get a shipment notification as well. And that's what creates the shipment over in the receiving area. And then you have the invoice that's created. And we're working with, if I don't know if everybody's using Batch, but if not, I would highly recommend it. Batch, we're working to connect the invoice to Batch so that you could have a sort of a check mark here to know that this invoice is on Batch and that you have received it and it matches whatever you thought your order price was. Because as we all know, things can kind of change, right? Like sometimes there's a mistake and they charge you shipping, or they charge you the wrong discount, or something like that. And what we want to do is try to expose those and show you that that there's a problem with an invoice before you have to go manually reconcile everything. A couple of other quick things that I would show you here on the order. We have this button on a number of different screens to verify pricing and pub dates, which I'm sure you all have experienced the wonderful thing where you discover that a book that you have in Square for $15.99 is actually now $17.99, and it has been for 3 months, but you didn't know to change the price. So at any point during the ordering process and in several other places, you can verify and check the pricing. And it's basically it's going in and it's comparing the data that we have from Edelweiss into Square to compare, is the price the same, is the pub date the same, is my data accurate. And then if it wasn't, you would get the prompt to like update them if you want. You can, line by line check which ones you want to update and click a button and it'll update Square, which is really nice. I recommend doing that during the receiving step, because that way you know for sure like this is what's going to happen before you get it on the floor. You know that the price is correct. So there's this concept of scratch pads, which are basically lists of books, right? User-defined list of things. In my store, we use them for things like the books that my wife says, I always want to make sure I have these on hand because I sell them and I want to make sure we have them. And they're not like, maybe a book that came out last week. These are books that, came out 10 years ago that she just wants to make sure are always in stock. We have our staff picks we each create a sheet for. We take all of our book club books and we'll put all the book club books on something like that. And you could do the same thing with so let me just grab, all right, that's got 8 titles on it. So I'm going to download this as a CSV. We'll actually do this. There it is. All right, so I'm just going to grab the ISBNs from this sheet, all right, and then come back here. And in this search bar, you have the ability to paste ISBNs. So the first, kind of the main one is just you're pasting one. Here I'm going to paste a bunch. And now all of these are in my system, but if they weren't, it would say, 7 are in catalog, one would be new to import, and I could import that item right from here, right? But so I've got this list of all the books that I need for that event. I could throw them on a scratch pad if I wanted to keep them there to be able to maybe do things again and again with them. But if it's just like a one-time deal, I could add them right to my to be ordered list, right? It's going to grab every one of them, and maybe I want to change the quantity and I want to get like four because it's an event. I'm going to process this, and it's going to add them all over to my to be ordered. And now that they're here, I can go through this process again, and it will add them to the right places. And I think, I mean, for me, most excitedly, like the best part of this is if I have this giant list of ISBNs like this, and 8 of them aren't in my catalog, it takes 2 seconds to process them and get them in the catalog. 2 seconds. Like all I have to do is just uncheck that. These are all in there. So otherwise it would give me the ability to just add them. But that would be super cool way to, like just put in a bunch of items really, really fast. Oh, you can also create a new item from here, just so you know. So like if you had an item that's not in the system already and it just doesn't exist, it's not in Edelweiss, you can create a book here. So like local author stuff. Of course, when we onboard your store initially and you connect to your location, we basically pull in whatever you have in your Square inventory. So if you have, say, local authors already in there, those will all get pulled in and they'll be in your system. So you can work with them how you would normally work with any other title. This would just be for something net new. Somebody brand new publishes something locally, they come in your store and you're going to sell it. This is how you could go about adding it. You could also add it in Square and it will update into Omnibus, but you could add it here as well. And it will push into Square. So I think I would recommend creating it here because you have discrete fields for things like author and title and publisher and all the other details that you would want to capture about a book. Whereas in Square, as you know, you basically have the title, the description, and and maybe something custom that you made in Square if you have a custom field, but that's all you got. So you're kind of held up with what you could show there. Another really cool thing, though, that I would show from a valuation perspective of your inventory. So there's a course at the Professional Booksellers School called Profitability that I had the pleasure of being an instructor at earlier this year. And I've worked with some really, really great, smart people that have been in the book world for a very long time. And just, you know, really picking up, I learned something new every day. It was phenomenal. Even as an instructor, I was learning something new. And one of the things that we talked about quite a bit was abacus, and that's the ABA's sort of reporting of stored financial data being aggregated, and then if you participate in this program, you get a copy of the report at the end, and you can kind of compare, the size of your store to other stores, and be fair to yourself. Don't give yourself a lot of grace here because this is not a very hard-lined kind of thing where you can say, I should be spending X on rent when that store in a different market is, spending way less. It's not fair. Everything's different. But there are some interesting points of comparison that can be brought out. And one of the things is that the most profitable stores have a really, really healthy margin mix. And by that, I mean, they're not just selling books at 40% off. They are selling socks at 60% margin. They're selling, magnets. They're selling postcards and cards and other sideline things and things that are non-book that bump up that margin significantly. And that is the difference in a big part between the most profitable stores and the least profitable stores. It's their margin mix and how they manage that. I don't know of any other system that really gives you visibility into this, but if you have your cost data accurately entered into Omnibus, we can show that to you. And this is showing you the different items, the count of items that you have in the different bands, what that equates to in dollar amount, what that equates to in retail, what the average discount is in that grouping. And then the sourcing, like, so that you can see here that some of these are estimated, right? So maybe I want to fix this and get some accurate costs in here because something's off with my data. And I can get a really good picture of what, you know, just what's driving my business. And, I think for a lot of stores, if you come in here and you see some, really, really light above the 45% numbers, you got to look at that and say, all right, what can I do to adjust this? What can I bring in that's going to help me beef up this 50 to 60%, 60 and even up range? Because it's realistic and you need it, right? It's what we can do to survive. We can't help anybody if the doors aren't open, and you've got to keep your doors open. So sell socks at 70% margin. I mean, you have to do what you have to do. And people, I mean, it depends on your market, of course, but I mean, generally speaking, people aren't upset about pricing for things like this. What's funny is they get very upset about pricing on a book and it has the price on the book. Anyway, I think this is a very, very useful tool to run your business that I think is, just a really great benefit of a very inexpensive program. Another cool thing, inventory audits, which are basically cycle counts for a section. Uh, if you have your items broken up into the physical areas that they are in the store, this is really, really helpful because you can start doing audits of those sections really simply. It's kind of like, oh, I'm going to come in a half an hour early. I'm going to start an audit and I'm going to go over to the shelf and I'm going to get a barcode scanner connected to my computer, start scanning books. And that is, as you start scanning, it's going to start ticking them over and pushing them over into this column as it's counted, right? So it's saying like, okay, I counted one of those. I counted one of those. This one I actually got two of. that kind of thing. And it's going to say there's a discrepancy in the two and that kind of thing. Like, so there's all the like, expected was one, I had two, so I'm actually plus one here. And when I finalize that, it comes out on a discrepancy report, it's tracked. We can then adjust the inventory. Um, you can find things that you didn't like if you didn't if you're missing items, you get to the end of the list and you're like, hey, there's four books here that I should have had that I don't. Now I'm gonna zero those out and adjust, and it's keeping your stock up to date, counted all the time. It makes it really easy to just, come in and grab a section. It's slow, grab a section, go do one. And, try not to have, 10,000 items in a section, of course, but most sections should be relatively manageable by, within an hour, you could scan every book in that section and have a count done. And then if you're constantly doing this, I mean, I hesitate to say that it negates the need to do it, but I mean, realistically, who wants to close for 3 days and count all the inventory? I mean, it's not something I really want to do in my store, honestly. It's 3 days of lost sales. It's just literally a massive expense to do it. And there's better ways, right? You can kind of, if you stay on top of this and you're really managing your inventory through cycle counts like this, I think the opportunity to keep it up to date and clean throughout the year means that even if you did that once a year, closing, counting everything process, you'd still be you're not going to be moving the needle a whole lot because you're going to be keeping it up to date throughout the year. So there are a couple of other areas of the platform too that we have, like a staffing calendar that's built into it, an events calendar, which uh, this is fully self-contained at the moment. Some vision here, though, of what we're building. Um, Imagine you create an event and you want to create it on your Facebook page and your website and your town's email blast that they send out and all those things, and you need to get that information to various people. Um, we can do that. Like that, those are the types of things we're building into this functionality, is so that when you create an event and you finalize the details, you can check a box and say, post this on my website, post this on Eventbrite, put this on, send this email to this group that with all the details. Um, and this is all work today that I know in my store, this is super manual, right? We are doing these things. There's a person that has to go to each one of those places and build the event and then create a post and do all the stuff. And it's a lot of time spent just kind of doing stuff that doesn't need to be a person doing it, frankly. I mean, it could be automated pretty easy with technology. Um, so that's something that we're building into this part of the platform. The calendar view also is super useful if you are using it for staffing, because you can, again, have all your events in here. You can have things like reps coming to visit, whatever that might be, other things, and have all your scheduling sort of picture in one place to know what you need to do and how many people you need to bring in. Maybe there's a big release that you've got to, have extra people on hand for. You could note those things, create events for them, and make sure that your staffing is, you're managing it more effectively. Some sales reports, a couple of other, another really quick thing that we have the ABA and New York Times reports basically configured and ready to go for you. All you have to do is hit the button. These are, for the week of 6/20, ending in 6/20. We also, just a little thing that I'm not sure if everybody's aware of or not, but when you sell a book that's a pre-order for something that's not out yet, the ABA actually, in their mechanism to handle the reporting, if you provide a report to them, they hold that title. In the New York Times, they hold it until the week of the book release, and then the numbers go into the system. The New York Times does not do that. They basically ignore it. So New York Times reporting is really easy, and if you're not doing it, you should be doing it, because every store, that's authors, when authors are coming out and publishers are talking to stores, that's one of the questions that they'll ask you, are you a New York Times reporting store? And you need to be able to say yes. It's really simple. And it's basically download this report, go to their website, upload it. It's really, really simple. It takes like 2 minutes, But before, you had to go create this report and getting it out of Square and deleting all the columns you don't need and then pulling out all the stuff. It was honestly, it's a pain. So we made it really, really simple. One click, download the file, go to the New York Times website, upload it. You're good to go.